Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started in approximately 2 minutes, so please find your place to sit. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone, welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to those who are potentially joining online. Good morning to those in the room. I'm Sarah Taylor of UN Women. I am more than delighted to be the moderator for this morning's discussion regarding the high-level launch of the Elsie Initiative Fund third programming round. We have a really amazing program for you today. We will be beginning with remarks from Undersecretary General Sima Sami Bahous, the Executive Director of UN Women, and followed by remarks from Undersecretary General Jean-Pierre Lacroix for UN Peace Operations. I will have one note on translation. There is apparently some drilling happening in the room behind the interpreters. There's been a request that stop, but they might have some challenges with interpretation throughout. Please be kind and recognize that it's nothing they have control over. Hopefully that will be the only glitch we face in this morning's excellent discussion. So, without further ado, I am more than delighted to welcome USG Bahous to make her remarks. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sarah. I don't know if Lord Ahmed is with us already on the screen. If not, Lord Ahmed.
Good morning. I can hear you.
Oh, hi. Good morning. Good morning from New York.
Lovely
Good
to see you
afternoon
both.
to you there. Yes, of course. So, Lord Ahmed, Undersecretary General Lacroix, Ambassador O'Neill, Ambassador Wechter, Ambassador Zelenthra, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues. It is a pleasure to join you today to launch the new programming round of the Elsie Initiative Fund. Last month, at the plenary meeting of the United Nations Special Committee on Peacekeeping Operations, member states once again called for the greater participation of women in peacekeeping. They highlighted what we all know so well, that the presence of women peacekeepers contributes to the greater credibility of missions and enables more effective mandate implementation. Let me stress again, women's equal and meaningful participation is vital for today's multidimensional peacekeeping missions. A more gender-responsive mission builds trust with the communities they serve. It improves the mission's effectiveness in protecting civilians, providing security, and addressing women's specific needs in the community. Yet, we remain a very long way from the equality that we seek and that communities deserve. Currently, women comprise just 8% of all uniformed peacekeepers, While I wish to acknowledge the positive progress that has been made since the adoption of the UN Uniform Gender Parity Strategy in 2018, there remains much more that we can and must do. Women are still starkly underrepresented in the majority of peacekeeping military contingents and in certain roles and functions. There are clear barriers to uniformed women's full and meaningful participation. These include sociocultural stereotypes, a lack of gender-sensitive infrastructure and facilities, and tolerance for misconduct and inappropriate behavior. The Elsie Initiative Fund in 2019 was created specifically to tackle these obstacles to progress through funding, support, and incentives, and I recognize again the foresight of Canada, along with other member states and the UN in doing so. Since its inception, the fund has provided financial support to 21 security institutions and 2 UN peacekeeping missions. UN Women is proud on many of these advancements and to be working on many of these advancements. As an example, jointly with the UN Department of Peace Operations, we are improving deployment conditions and creating receptive mission environments for women peacekeepers. Excellencies, dear friends and colleagues, we are seeing results. With the fund's support, troop and police contributing countries are deploying more uniformed women peacekeepers and, more importantly, ensuring their meaningful participation. In 2022, Ghana deployed its first gender-strong military battalion of over 800 military peacekeepers, of whom 19% are women. Senegal deployed their third 140-person gender-strong formed police unit with 18% women. Among those deployed, women are fully integrated into all roles and functions, including at leadership and operational levels. It is also heartening to see a growing number of security institutions, 14 to date, that have received funding for assessments to identify the barriers limiting women's participation at both country and institutional levels. These barrier assessments are an essential first step to inform the development of evidence-based solutions. I applaud all these efforts. And the fund's support enables institutions to develop gender equality policies, pilot gender and family-friendly projects to support the training and deployment of women and men, and build gender-sensitive infrastructure and facilities. Together, these actions are transforming international commitments into real, visible progress to implement the Women, Peace and Security Agenda and to bring us closer to inclusive peace. Excellencies, there is still more to accomplish women's meaningful participation in the Women, Peace and Security Agenda, with all that it promises for the building and rebuilding of peaceful societies that are resilient to future shocks. I have addressed the Security Council twice this year. On both occasions, as throughout my interventions last year, I called on member states to include women in all areas of public life. Today, I reiterate the call to action. I urge you to make sure that women have equal opportunities to participate fully in national security institutions and peacekeeping. UN Women and the Elsie Initiative Fund stand ready to support you on this. The important work of the Elsie Initiative Fund is only possible through the generous contribution of its partners. I therefore ask that member states continue to step up to support the fund to ensure that it can keep delivering results and further scale up its impact. Only through collective and concerted actions can we make gender parity a reality and achieve long-lasting peace, security, and resilience for all. I count on each of you for your continued support, and I thank you.
Thank you so much for those remarks, that overview, the challenges and achievements, but most importantly, of course, for the call to action. Thank you. I will now turn to USD Lacroix for additional opening remarks. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sarah, and dear Sima, Lord Ahmad, Ambassador O'Neill, Major General O'Brien, dear friends and colleagues. It's a pleasure to be here at the launch of the third programming round of the Elsie Initiative Fund for Uniformed Women in Peace Operations. The Elsie Initiative Fund is a key partner in our work to increase the meaningful participation of uniformed women in peacekeeping. It plays a crucial role in translating member states and United Nations gender equality commitments and shared values into concrete actions. As a member of the Elsie Fund Steering Committee, the Department of Peace Operations provides strategic and technical guidance to the fund towards achieving its programmatic objectives. I would like to express our appreciation to the fund's key supporters, Australia, Canada, Denmark, Finland, Germany, Netherlands, Norway, the Republic of Korea, and the UK, as well as our partners in UN Women, for your continued strong support to this initiative. It's great to be here with you, Sima, and to recognize the great cooperation between the Department of Peace Operations and UN Women. As you all know, implementing the Women, Peace and Security agenda is a top priority for the Department of Peace Operations, and it is, as a result, a key priority of the Action for Peacekeeping agenda and the A4P Plus plan. And that, of course, for a very good reason. We're facing unprecedented global challenges to peace and security. Peace operations are confronted with increasingly challenging political and operating environments. Indeed, pretty much all our peacekeeping operations have a deteriorated security and political environment. And therefore, to effectively address these challenges, we now more than ever need a diverse and gender-balanced workforce that reflects the diversity of the populations we serve and with whom we can build trust with host communities and authorities and overall improve our effectiveness. Our gender parity efforts are also a matter of justice. There should be no limitation on the grounds of gender to what women can achieve in all roles and at all levels, and we're seeing it pretty much every day with our female colleagues piloting helicopters, fixing those heavy machines and all kind of stuff, and that is really great. Since the launch of the Uniform Gender Parity Strategy in 2018, we have worked to build a more gender-balanced workforce as well as respectful and empowering work environment. And we have come a long way. In 2022, the Department of Peace Operations met the targets set out in the Uniform Gender Parity Strategy for all categories of uniformed personnel except military contingents where women continue to be starkly underrepresented. And of course, that has a major impact on the overall percentage of women in peacekeeping operation, because as you know, the military contingent are by far the strongest, the largest component of our uniform components. We have also made headway in regard to uniform leadership. Women are now leading 5 out of 7 UN police components in peacekeeping operations, and there are 4 women in military leadership positions, of course, including Major General O'Brien, Deputy Military Advisor at HQ. However, I have to say that we're still having a bit of a hard time finding candidates for senior military positions. So we would really call on all our troop contributing countries to provide us with more female candidates for these force commander, deputy force commander type of positions. This progress, because overall this has been a progress, has been possible thanks to the close partnership with troop and police contributing countries on which we rely to recruit, train and deploy peacekeepers. The Elsie Initiative Fund has been a key partner in these efforts by supporting contributing countries to expand their understanding of barriers to women's deployment, to increase the pool of uniformed women eligible for deployment and improve their working and living conditions. For example, the Elsie Initiative Fund has supported the strengthening of gender-responsive accommodation, sanitation facilities, and welfare areas in MINUSMA and UNIFIL. Actually, I was lucky enough to visit both in UNISFA and in UNIFIL 2 camps where facilities had been just, specific facilities to provide a welcoming environment for women had just been put together with the support of the Elsie Initiative, and that was really great to see that. We have also worked to address gender bias and debunk gender stereotypes, which too often hold women back from attaining their full potential, for example, by issuing guidance such as the UNPOL Gender Toolkit and launching communication campaigns such as Peace is My Mission and the Seeking Peace podcast. And now we are already seeing the impact of these efforts. For example, women corrections officers in MONUSCO have been instrumental for the drafting of the first ever gender strategy for the DRC prison service. In MINUSCA, almost 1/3 of military patrols last year included women peacekeepers. And missions report that women and men peacekeepers may pick up on different signals and threats during patrols, thereby strengthening our situational awareness and assessment of how situations may affect men, women, boys, and girls differently. However, challenges remain to achieving full gender equality in peacekeeping and in national security institutions. For example, in UN military contingents, I already referred to that, women still only constitute 6.1% of our troops and too often face inadequate and unsupportive environment. And I would like to insist on that latter point because I think that we need to make more efforts to make sure that beyond the numbers, the work environment that we provide on the ground are welcoming to women. And unfortunately, that is not always the case. I think there's particular attention that needs to be paid to that. Therefore, we call on our troop and police contributing countries to join us in refocusing our efforts to achieve full gender equality in peacekeeping by ensuring equal national training, education, and career management in all specializations required for peacekeeping, including combat roles, providing gender-sensitive infrastructure, facilities, and healthcare, as well as uniformed and personnel protective equipment, and cultivating a gender equality mindset among personnel and leadership. Specifically, a campaign to recruit seconded military personnel in UNHQ, General O'Brien, has been circulated to member states and is currently open until the 3rd of June. I would like to take this opportunity to encourage member states to nominate qualified women for these posts to help us advance women's meaningful participation in peacekeeping. In order to achieve this, I strongly encourage all contributing countries to take advantage of what the Elsie Initiative Fund has to offer, such as support to identifying and addressing barriers to women's participation in security institutions, developing gender-sensitive policies, and creating more receptive environments in national security institutions and field missions. So, dear friend, let us work together to continue accelerating progress in this important area, and I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much for those points and for that overview again of the work that has been done. Truly, there is progress, but there's great strides that need to be taken as well. I am delighted that we are now going to turn to the panel discussion section of our event, which will be opened by our friend online. To open the discussion, we have a keynote address from Lord Ahmed of Wimbledon. As you've already seen, he is joining online. He is the Minister of State for the Middle East, South Asia, UN, and the Prime Minister's Special Representative on Preventing Sexual Violence and Conflict in the United Kingdom. Lord Ahmed, it's wonderful to see you, and the floor is yours. Can you hear us? No. Okay. Slight technical challenge. Can you hear us? No. You can't hear us. Yeah. Are we muted?
No, he's on mute.
Oh, he's on mute. But he can't hear us either. Is there anything more post-pandemic than this conversation right now? Okay, I don't know who has the... Is that you, Vic? Are we muted? No. Okay. Oh. I am going to make an executive decision that we're going to start the panel discussion since we have limited time, and that if our colleagues with the technical know-how could work. Can you hear us? No. Okay. So if we can move forward with the panel discussion part, and we will go ahead and welcome Lord Ahmed when that's solved. So if I'm just going to take that decision and not have a vote. So, with my apologies to Lord Ahmed for the moment, I'm sure that we will get that fixed soon. I will go ahead and introduce the panelists who we have for our discussion today. We have, joining us for our panel discussion, Councillor Maria Barreta, the political coordinator of the Permanent Mission of Uruguay. We have by video, as we've already seen just momentarily, Captain Veronica Arhin, Gender Policy Advisor to the Chief of Defense Staff of the Ghana Armed Forces. We also have, I'm delighted to have Major General Maureen O'Brien, Deputy Military Advisor at DPO. And again by video, we have Commissioner Christine Fossen, Police Commissioner at the UN Mission in South Sudan. We also have, on my right, the amazing Dr. Sabrina Karim, Assistant Professor at Cornell University, who many will know for her research and leading of research. Following that, we will have, at some point, we will have Lord Ahmed joining us. And of course, we're delighted to have some interventions from the floor after our panel discussion, and we will close our session with wise remarks from Ambassador Jacqueline O'Neill from Canada. So that's the run of show and the program that we have for you today. So while we fix the situation online, I am going to direct the first question to Major General O'Brien to get us started. The big question, why? Why is it important to ensure uniformed women's participation in UN peacekeeping? What is the progress, following on from some of the remarks we've already heard today? What's some of the progress to date, and what are the gaps that we need to bridge? I'll ask everybody to keep to time, about 5 minutes, so the floor is yours.
So what I would say, we just mentioned, or the USG just mentioned, that we have a recruitment campaign opened in the Office of Military Affairs. There are approximately 100 personnel there, all officers, from 41 different countries. 21% currently are women, so we're making good headway there. But we'd like more. And the difficulty we have, as the USG mentioned, is that some forces haven't got the women in those ranks at the moment. And it actually stems from the forces. There are some forces here who do not allow women into what might be called combat roles. And if they are not allowed into those roles, they won't become the chief of staff of a mission, they won't become the deputy force commander of a mission, and they won't become the force commander of a mission. So it starts at home. Yesterday I celebrated 40 years being commissioned into the Irish Defence Forces. So it takes 42 years. I was 12 when I started. It takes 42 years to grow a major general. So if you haven't started now, you're very late to the party, but it's never too late. And it is about providing the opportunities, opening the way for women, but it is not a matter just of adding women and stirring. It is having an inclusive environment that everybody can share their differences and samenesses that make places successful. They say that those companies that have at least 50% diversity or inclusion of women are more profitable. So those forces that don't include women run the risk of becoming inferior forces. That's why we need women in the military. Thank you.
Thank you. And as you can see, well noted and well received. The 42-year point is, I think, a startling and eye-opening one. I am going to turn to Commissioner Fossen, if we have Commissioner Fossen joining us, I believe by video, although my concern is that we will be encountering some of the same challenges. I'm not sure if we have Commissioner Fossen. Okay, I'm going to wait to see how we go on that one as well. I'm going to look at Sabrina. Because this is a flexible endeavor today. So, Dr. Karim, Sabrina, you have extensive experience in looking at the barriers and challenges. Is that Commissioner Fossen? Okay, I'm sorry, Sabrina. Commissioner Fossen, can you hear us? Yeah, no, okay. You have extensive experience researching, examining, and looking in depth at what these barriers are. Could you talk about these key barriers, about what this means, these key barriers, and why it's critical for troop and police and contributing countries to undergo barrier assessments?
From Canada in particular, but many other countries who have supported this process. Together with DCAF, we have identified through the research that has been going on for decades 10 major barriers to women's meaningful participation. And through the MOAT methodology, we work with countries to identify which barriers pertain to them in particular. We might assume maybe that all 10 barriers might affect women in particular security forces, but we can't work on all 10 necessarily at the same time. So it's important to identify both the best practices from the countries as well as where specifically the resources should go. And that's why it's important to undertake this barrier assessment, because it's designed to specifically to identify those barriers. So let me tell you 3 other major benefits that troop and contributing countries can gain by undertaking a MOAP assessment, especially in collaboration with the newly funded by Global Affairs Canada Gender and Security Sector Lab, which I direct. First, the troop and police contributing country security institutions that use the MOAT process are able to objectively identify the country's specific barriers that women and men in their security force face when it comes to deployment to UN peacekeeping operations. This enables the troop and police contributing country to make specific recommendations to the donor community that are based on data-driven evidence. The troop and police contributing countries can easily take these recommendations to the Elsie Initiative Fund, but also to other donor countries and organizations. Second, the MOAT process itself leads to changes, and I have seen this firsthand when working with countries. The process itself changes and reduces barriers to women's meaningful participation because it requires senior leadership to pay attention to the problems of their personnel, and it requires them to make change because they're faced with this evidence. Third, most troop and police contributing countries have not taken a data-driven approach to understanding the unique challenges their personnel face. The MOAT process uses this data-driven process that can be tailored to meet the needs of each country and each security force. More specifically, the MOAT process can be adapted to understand other pressing issues within the security forces, such as barriers, but also issues related to cohesion and morale. The MOAT methodology process employs institutional facts, interviews with key decision makers who make decisions about deployment, and a large-scale survey of women and men in the security forces, as well as a comprehensive validation process that includes the voices of women through focus groups and senior leadership in a formal forum. We have worked with a diverse set of countries, ranging from the armed forces in Norway to Uruguay, to Zambia, to Bangladesh, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Cambodia. And we're happy to say that we can continue this partnership with countries through a partnership model A or B, where troop and contributing countries work with the Gender and Security Lab at Cornell at no cost, thanks to Canada, again, to the troop and police contributing country. Thanks to this funding, the lab is able to help train local partners implementing the MOAT methodology. It helps to oversee the data collection process to ensure its quality. It helps to analyze the data, helps to write the report if necessary, present results, and most importantly, perhaps, clean the data for the security forces to use themselves in the future. The partnership ensures that the troop and police contributing country conducts the MOAT process so that it not only meets the minimum standards, but that the data generated can be used to help the troop and police contributing country improve all areas of their peacekeeping process. The countries can request any additional analysis as well as training on the data collected. The GSS Lab partnership also ensures that any country adaptation to the methodology meets the Elsie Fund requirements. All partnership models ensure data protection and security, as well as a data contract that enables the troop and police contributing country to dictate the terms of the data use. In fact, the GSS lab, which is housed at Cornell University, is able to use the resources there to ensure the maximum data protection because that's what universities do. They have facilities for helping to protect data and storage. And again, this can be done through partnership model A and B. Finally, the partnership with the GSS lab contributes to broader research that's very important to reducing barriers beyond the troop and police contributing country. So the data in aggregate from the countries that we've worked with have been used to create the Global MOAP report by DCAF, in which we identified that household constraints, gender roles, and social exclusion at the global level are the main barriers that countries face, or that countries' women face from deployment to peacekeeping operations. The research generated from the aggregate data has also allowed the GSS lab to discover unexpected barriers, such as how climate change is impacting women in missions, and how participation itself in the United Peacekeeping Operation actually makes individual soldiers, men and women, police officers, men and women, hold more democratic values upon their return. In short, partnership with the GSS lab on the MOAP assessment enables research that will fundamentally improve women's meaningful participation at the global level and not just at the troop and police contributing level. So we look forward to working with many more countries after this round is launched. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. So to sum up, unexpected findings to pursue, free, specific, and can result in improvements across the security sector. I feel like this is a bit of a no-brainer. But anyway, thank you so much. I believe that we have Lord Ahmed on the line. I will just check. Can you hear me now, Lord Ahmed?
I can hear you. I hope you can hear me.
I gave a glowing introduction to you that you missed, so my apologies for that.
Nothing less, Sarah.
Suffice to say, we're delighted to have you here. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Well, good morning from London, and it's great to join my dear friends, the Under-Secretary General and Executive Director, Seema Bahous, and the Under-Secretary General, Jean-Pierre Lacroix. Seema, Jean-Pierre, lovely to see you. And Jean-Pierre, I must admit, I got the first couple of minutes of your speech, and then you were taken away. I'm sure it was high quality as ever, but thank you to you both, and thank you also to UN Women and our esteemed panel. Led by, of course, Canada, who started the Elsie Initiative, but to all at the Elsie Initiative Fund and to all contributors for your continued commitment on the important agenda of women, peace, and security. To be quite frank, women matter. They make peace, they keep peace, they sustain peace. That's not just words, that's what the evidence says as well. And therefore, Your Excellencies, colleagues and friends, we all know that the Elsie Initiative really enables more uniformed women to make meaningful participation in peace operations. But the key question, I suppose, then is, what does meaningful actually mean? Yes, the UN gender parity targets are an important indicator of progress. And yes, we know that far greater numbers of women are needed for operational effectiveness. But meaningful participation, it also means the quality as well as the quantity. As we heard from Under-Secretary General, Executive Director Seema Bahous just a few moments ago, there is no function on peace missions that women do not fill, from an operational analysis to promoting human rights, from running airfields to, of course, clearing mines. But we also heard the quite startling statistic that in 2023, women still constitute 8% of those participating in peacekeeping missions. Therefore, we need to see more and more women represented in all the roles I've mentioned. We need to see women in all levels of peacekeeping, including and perhaps especially in key leadership roles. And Jean-Pierre, you mentioned the importance of countries, member states putting forward more women for these roles. And certainly from a UK perspective, we take note of that very important request. We've seen in past deployments that women actively lead and participate in peacekeeping missions. They contribute not only in their regular duties, but sometimes reach populations and access places that, frankly, and let's be frank here, are closed to men. Sometimes they're cultural barriers, religious barriers, and we must be sensitive to those particular issues. And a visible presence of women peacekeepers has been shown to raise other women's participation rates in both local police and military forces. If I may, I just want to reflect on Flight Captain Naima Haq. Flight Captain Naima Haq is one of Bangladesh's first female military pilots who served in MINUSCO in the DRC. She agrees that uniformed women like her, as well as performing their operational duties, are an inspiration for local women. Well, I'm going to disagree with Naima for one moment. She does not only inspire women, she inspires men as well. And Flight Captain Naima Haq also says this: when they see us, they feel they should have education. They should fight for their rights because it's possible. So that important experience and practical insight surely shows to us all that when women peacekeepers are creating, in effect, a virtuous circle of inclusion, their impact goes far beyond the role they are performing. It changes communities, it impacts societies, and nations progress. This improves the capacity of their host security sectors to take over responsibility, and ultimately paves the way to a peace, as I said earlier, that is more sustainable for the long term. More women in peacekeeping means more effective peacekeeping for tomorrow as well as today. Last year, I met British troops who returned from MINUSMA and UNFICIT on UN Peacekeepers Day. I loved learning about British women peacekeepers in Mali, reaching parts of the community close to men, improving situational awareness, and ultimately performing that key function, protecting civilians. But to make up these essential mixed engagement teams, the unit relied on reinforcement from women in other roles. But we simply did not have the numbers. Your Excellencies, dear friends, we all have a long road ahead of us if we want to make equal representation a reality. But we should be inspired by the examples of women peacekeepers, because why? They are so effective. There is only one course of action. We need to do more. We need to make changes. It was Eleanor Roosevelt who said about the future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams and to make those a reality. We should all aspire to that. And those changes start domestically. And that is why here in the United Kingdom, our new Women, Peace and Security National Action Plan has outlined a domestic WPS policy for the first time. We need to look at how each and every one of our armed forces and police services address female recruitment, retention and progression. And in the UK, we recognize, like every country should, we can do better and go further. We need to understand the barriers, the challenges, the attitudes, learn from each other, from friends and partners who are reaching these targets. And we are taking a close look at the barriers in our own peacekeeping deployments as well. And it is wonderful to see how projects supported by the EIF are already tackling obstacles to participation. More investment will mean the fund can scale up that impact and make gender parity a future reality. In recognizing all the member states, and the United Kingdom has been a proud contributor from the start of this initiative by Canada, and again, I pay tribute to their important role. Elsie is fantastic at supporting troop and police contributing countries to address the challenges that are identified. So therefore, I'm once again delighted to announce today that the United Kingdom will donate an additional £1 million to this incredible fund. This year, the 75th anniversary of UN peacekeeping, I hope we can remind ourselves of just how meaningful our uniformed women's participation really is, both home and abroad. And as the anniversary campaign says, peace begins with me. Indeed, it does. It begins with me, it begins with you, it begins with all of us in this room and beyond. And only when we are all represented will we truly see lasting peace, which is our ultimate objective. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lord Ahmed. I just want to note, I don't think you could hear because the microphone wasn't on. When you made the announcement of the additional funding, the room burst out into applause. So just so that you know that that was appreciated, much appreciated, as is the topics around the virtuous circle of inclusion, gender parity as a future reality we really can achieve, and that ownership at the domestic level. So that and many other points, thank you so much. And of course, for your patience with our inevitable challenges with video streaming. So thank you again, Lord Ahmed. And we will now return partially to our regular scheduled programming. I am going to see if Commissioner Fossen is available to make make an intervention. Commissioner Fossen, if you are available online, we would love to see you.
Yes, I'm here.
Brilliant.
Great.
Brilliant.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Hello. There we are. We can see you. Excellent. I'm going to go back to the question that we had originally posed to Major General O'Brien, which is sort of this insight from your perspectives around why it is important to ensure uniformed women's participation in UN peacekeeping. Your insights, your experience on some of the progress to date and gaps that we need to bridge. And again, I will ask you to keep your comments to 5 minutes or fewer. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and good morning from Norway to New York. I'm currently on leave from my mission in South Sudan, but I'm happy to be here with all of you. So good morning, and I would like to thank the Ministry of State, Lord Ahmed, for his wonderful speech and his good keynotes. I think he said much of things we can all agree upon. And also his contribution is very well received, I would guess, not only in New York, but also here from my perspective. But good morning to all of you, Your Excellencies, ambassadors, and everyone present. To go to your question, there's one basic answer that we, in all these, when we discuss the importance of women participation and gender equality, it's because we need female peacekeepers, because we have to reflect the community we serve. For example, where I'm police commissioner in South Sudan, in UNMISS, the woman percentage in South Sudan is over 50% because so many of the men have died in the wars. So as today, it's more than 50% women in South Sudan, and the population is young. And when we cannot just advocate for the gender equality in our host state if we don't practice it ourselves. At the moment, UNMISS or UNPOL, we have 37% IPOs, that means individual police officers, and we have 28% FPUs who are female, which means we have 28% female peacekeepers in our formed police units, which is very good and very high. We have but our number goes a little bit up and down because of the checking in, checking out in the mission. But in generally, UNMISS on the police side has a high numbers of female, which is important. It gives us better access to the community. We are working constantly every day on the issues regarding sexual gender-based violence. To address these issues, we need female peacekeepers who can access the information, who can who can identify them with the mothers, the sisters, the young girls, who can really reach out to the communities. Many male peacekeepers can also do this, but to the sensitivity and to the community we're working in, or the communities all over South Sudan, it's so much easier for females, for women, to address the females in the host or in our host state. So I think this access to the community, this way of reaching out to the woman and to discuss how can we prevent, how can we support you in this, and how can we support the communities in working on these issues. I think for the same, it's also important for the community managers. They better understand issues which affect society when they are caregivers by nature. It's easier if we're going to address the challenges the people of South Sudan have, especially in the IDP camps or in the conflicted, in the areas, in the communities. We need to understand and to address and to discuss with the women what kind of problems do they have when they're going to fetch wood, they're going to fetch water, how are they going to take care of the children, and how important the role as mother, the role as sister, to really, especially as mother, how to make sure that we get all the children for school. Education is fundamental to all societies, and especially when you're building peace and following up the peace agreement in a country like South Sudan. Lastly, I would like to emphasize, as we always talk about, it's important, and especially important for the young population in South Sudan, to see role models, to see, me as a female police commissioner, I constantly discuss with the IGP of South Sudan and encourage him to get more and to support more females in his leadership, but also for me to meet with the women, for our female peacekeepers to walk out in the IDP camps or in the communities, in our POC site, protection of civilian site, that the young small girls, they can see, oh, we can manage one day, we can be a police officer. So this role model thing is so important, and especially in post-conflict areas. And of course, at last, we need to advocate for rights of women and girls, easily interact. And once again, female peacekeepers can more easily, many times, interact with women and girls. And we can reach out to survivors of GBV, and we can mentor the young girls in the community. So I think all of this adds up. It is so important, and we stress this fact every day. But I must say, with my long background as a police commissioner as well in Norway, I have always said that male can also do these things just as easy. But I think for countries like post-conflict countries like South Sudan, where we're operating, it is so, the fact that we have female peacekeepers is crucial to reach our mandate to protect the civilians and to reflect whatever the communities. And if we're going to serve what I already talked, the points I have made, I think I've used my 5 minutes. I haven't. Yes. Yes. Okay. Thank you. I will come back. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much again for those insights and for your experience. And I think we have so many themes that are, many of which are not unexpected about the importance of this work at many levels and the responsibilities we all face. Given our revised schedule, I am now going to turn to Councillor Beretta. We've been hearing these points. We have been hearing the insights on the ground at the global level. I'd like to come back to this question that we posed originally to Dr. Karim, which is around the key barriers. Yep, so from the Uruguay experience, what are some of the key barriers to women's participation in UN peacekeeping at the country level? And speaking to the barrier assessment, why that's so critical. The floor is yours, and if you can please keep it to 5 minutes.
I'm going to use my stopwatch. Yeah. So I will try. Okay, so thank you very much for the question. Oh, actually, I remember. We have a translation, so I'm going to...
Yes,
okay, en español, entonces, gracias.
In that case, I'll speak Spanish. First of all, I want to briefly explain how we identify barriers. It was very well explained by Sabrina already, but I wanted to say that in Uruguay we carried out a MOIP study in 2019 and 20 with DCAF, Cornell University, and the Elsie Initiative and the Foreign Affairs Ministries of Norway and Canada. This was a very important assessment because it provided us these 10 areas, critical areas where we had to work. And it also provided priorities for each area so that we knew where to focus and how our security institutions needed to work in the future to remove these barriers. Also, we identified barriers above and beyond the most obvious ones, also barriers which asked things like, why does a woman take a decision or not to deploy? In this specific case, the priorities which were classified as being a high priority were restrictions at households, experience in peace operations, and gender barriers. Regarding restrictions in households, the sub-barriers identified in that are things like the fact that peacekeeping troops, of course, can't be with their families. They're away from them for at least a year. They don't have subsidies to go back and visit them during the holidays. And there's stigma as well for women who deploy when they're young. So they're stigmatized, and often they tend to deploy when they're very young, before they become parents. And sometimes it can be difficult for them then to go back and to continue growing professionally within peace missions. On that front as well, I wanted to state that there is also the option of there being, well, we have a policy in the Military Affairs Office in the US for individual deployments, which allow for lower level or small deployments for women who have children under 8. And Uruguay has deployed women military under that method, short deployments. Deployment experiences can also have negative consequences within a couple or for the families as a whole. Regarding peace operation and experiences there, the results of the study show that often women feel less prepared to participate in peace missions, particularly in operational roles. That may not be the truth, but it is an internal perception that we discovered when we carried out this study. Women also tend more to have problems within the mission, such as nostalgia, harassment, and other health problems. We also want to stress, in terms of barriers, the fact that both men and women do need support to tackle problems which they face when they return from missions sometimes. So Uruguay is working on that, so there is this follow-up process for after the return of personnel. Many people have also heard of negative experiences in peace missions that then has an effect, when they've heard about bad experiences, that has an effect on them deciding whether to go or not. Women, as I was saying, tend to be less deployed in dangerous missions, or they tend less to undertake operational functions there, often because leaders want to protect them or because they themselves don't decide to do it. They tend also to take on more stereotypical feminine roles, such as administrative tasks. So those are some of the barriers. As I was saying, some of them are more obvious, others are more surprising. And we've used this study to design a program in 2020 using the findings from the study. So we prepared a project called Implementation of Strategies to Overcome Barriers to Increase the Significant Participation of Women in Peace Operations. And that was how we applied for the second programming round of the Elsie Initiative Fund. And we're very pleased because last year the project was approved for financing in August 2022. It's focusing on 4 barriers, 3 high priority barriers I already mentioned, and also the deployment criteria barrier. That's a mid-level barrier. And now the project's fully being implemented. Thank you.
Muchísimas gracias for this wonderful
Thank you very much.
and findings and work of Uruguay. Also, congratulations on 5 minutes exactly. I appreciate that. Okay, we are now going to turn to Captain Arhin, who I believe is also joining us online. We're going to take that gamble again. Captain Arhin, are you able to join us online?
Yes, please.
Excellent. Captain Arhin, I have a couple of questions for you, which I might actually, given our time constraints, ask you to address simultaneously, if that is okay. We have a question to you regarding the key barriers to women's participation in UN peacekeeping from your experience and why it's so critical to undergo that barrier assessment. And then I'm going to ask you to address also how the EIF funded projects are addressing barriers to women's participation. So it's this sort of trajectory of questions, if you could give us that overview. It'd be wonderful if you could do that in sort of 5 to 7 minutes. I know an impossible ask, but the floor is yours. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, the moderator. Am I answering all my questions at once, or I'll have to break and come back?
Pardon?
Am I answering all the questions?
Oh, all at once. Do it all at once. Give us all of your insights all at once. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, the moderator. Please permit me to stand on the already established protocol to go ahead with my submission. And so on behalf of the Chief of the Defense Staff of the Ghana Armed Forces, Vice Admiral Seth Amoama, and the Military High Command, I would like to thank you so much for this honor done me to be part of this high program. I must say that Ghana Armed Forces started enlisting women as far back as 1958, a year after Ghana gained independence. And since then, the numbers have increased in rank, in appointment, in what have you. And the gender mainstreaming effort has been taken a notch higher year by year. But I must add that the Elsie Initiative Fund has strengthened the Ghana Armed Forces gender mainstreaming effort. And the Ghana Armed Forces is the first military to have undergone the MOWEP assessment, that is measuring opportunity for women in peacekeeping. And as part of the MOWEP assessment, I must say that we needed to carry out assessment in all the garrisons of the Ghana Armed Forces, and to add that this tool, the MOWEP assessment tool, is very efficient because it helps to identify not only barriers, but also the positive practices that sometimes go unnoticed. So I would say that the MOWEP assessment is a very efficient tool and encourage other police and military forces to undergo the barrier assessment. And as part of the barrier assessment, there was key decision makers interview. There was fact-finding aside the survey. The assessment is helpful to Ghana because it has enabled us to improve where we have challenges, and then where we are doing well, we also build up on it. The MOWEP has helped us because, but for the MOWEP, we would not know most of the challenges even existed. We would have taken it as part of our routine work and might not have averted our minds to it. So out of the assessment, the 3 top barriers were low eligibility pool, social exclusion, and gender role. Low eligibility pool because before 2016, women were not allowed into the combat role. And so if we had to deploy, it was difficult to have adequate numbers of women across the entire spectrum of the battalion or the company. Now, social exclusion, because militaries around the world are masculine. So the military has been masculinized. And so the female angle is normally not looked at. Sometimes due to either vacancy challenges or inadequate infrastructure, female numbers for certain forces are reduced, or sometimes even totally cancelled. And on the issue of gender roles, yes, most women are into the supporting unit, and that is why gender role featured prominently. Now, let's look at how the MOWEB assessment finding has been put to use. Tailored projects and programs have been undertaken by the Ghana Armed Forces to address the three high barriers identified. With the help of the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, the national research partner, 2 projects were developed. One is being funded by the Elsie Initiative, and the second project is a bilateral technical assistance and training partnership with Canada and the Canadian military. The assistance from the Canadian military includes a garrison tour, which was to give a feedback to personnel on the outcome of the MOWEB assessment. We are also developing a comprehensive gender policy. We are institutionalizing gender training at different levels in the armed forces. A database is being developed for the Ghana Armed Forces Department of International Peacekeeping. Targeted peacekeeping training is being given to military observers and staff officers. At the end of that project, we expect a total of 180 personnel to be trained, out of which 120 will be female. Since I'm to continue everything, let me say that with the Elsie Initiative Fund, this is how the fund is going to be used to address the top 3 challenges identified. We are going to have a nationwide female recruitment campaign. And the aim of this recruitment campaign is to inform the public that other opportunities exist. Aside the gender role, we have other opportunities, especially in the combat role and the combat support role. This media campaign, when undertaken, will, 1, help to address the issue of low eligibility and also to some extent reduce the gender role that women play in the military. We are also, the Elsie Initiative Fund is also assisting Ghana Armed Forces to put together a total of 300-bed female capacity, 200 at one of our recruit training centers and 100 at another. The aim is to provide the infrastructure deficits, which sometimes tend to exclude females from certain training and certain courses. Now, Ghana is also deploying 19.2% of females in UNIFIL. We started 2022 and will be ending by 2024. What this deployment does is that now we have more women playing combat roles. We have women in the engagement platoons, we have women within the operational cell, and they now contribute to operations. Hitherto, we had women only in the supporting role. So that is a plus, and that is how the Elsie Initiative Fund is being put to use in the Ghana Armed Forces. I must also add that apart from the Gender Strong Unit, the Elsie Fund has supported to put together a gender-sensitive camp accommodation in UNIFIL to take care of the Gender Strong battalion that is established there. Now, we have some innovative approaches that have helped Ghana Armed Forces to be able to deploy the close to 20% of females. 1, the entire armed forces is now open for women to join whichever branch they're interested in, including the combat role. And this started as way back as 2016. And so we had the first female combat female in 2017.
Captain Arheen, can I ask you, I'm so sorry, can I ask you to wrap up? We're so short on time, and these are such good points, but if I can ask you to make just summarize your final points, that would be amazing.
All right, so that is fine. So all I'd like to say that the Elsie Initiative, and for that matter, the MOWEB assessment has been of great effort to making sure that our gender mainstreaming effort is taken a notch higher. And so I would encourage every military, every police force to be part of this Elsie Initiative because it is very important and it's held in meaningfully deploying women, not only on peacekeeping, but also in our own militaries in our respective countries. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for this incredibly powerful description and demonstration of the trajectory from the assessment through to real concrete action and impact. Thank you, and I'm sorry to cut you off there. We are, of course, running short on time. I am going to take that second part of the question for Councillor Beretta regarding how the EIF-funded projects, how they are addressing barriers to women's participation. If you could keep your remarks as brief as possible, I'd be grateful.
Thank you. Bien, como les comentaba antes.
As I was telling you earlier, in the Armed Forces project in Uruguay is focusing on deployment criteria, limitations for households and responsibilities at home, perceptions of negative experiences in peace operations, and gender roles. What I'd like to share with you is the innovative approaches as a part of this project. Firstly, we hope to be able to carry out information and publicity campaigns on the activities and opportunities for women. Firstly, within the armed forces, because we need more women in the armed forces to be able to deploy, and so we want to be able to show them what the opportunities are in these two areas. We'll also be holding conferences on the positive experiences of women serving in peace operations. We're trying to overcome the negative perceptions that women might have had from hearing negative experiences. We have a panel of women talking about who've participated in peace operations, talking about their experiences. We're also looking at systemic issues facing women serving in peace operations. The aim of this is to ensure deeper analysis of the root causes of women's low participation within a national context. One of the most innovative activities that we have from a social perspective is to ensure access to full-time education and transport from and to schools for children under the age of 12. Not only the children of women who are deployed, but also of men who have been deployed within single-parent households. We believe that this measure will be alleviating the greatest burden for looking after children when their mothers or fathers are deployed. We're also implementing a mobile information and education team, the majority of which will be women, to inform and educate women about the operational roles and how to develop skills for peace operations. And I'd like to also provide some updates here. Last week, we held the first two-day informative session aimed at staff within the National Navy, Air Force, and Army to provide information on this mobile education unit. And we'll be also holding two more of these sessions in April and May. Now, in terms of expectations, we hope that the project will lead to sustainable change for Uruguay in terms of women's participation in armed forces, to overcome current challenges, but also to open new ways forward and to lay the foundations for new strategies once we have finished implementing this first project. The project was also designed in order to ensure that the results are long-term. And we hope that the information campaign will lead to increasing female personnel within the armed forces and ensuring greater presence of women. This will then better reflect society within our armed forces. We also hope to be able to retain these female personnel, but also that they have a feeling of vocation, of a calling to the armed forces, and to ensure that more women are deployed. We're also looking at the funding side of things. We have this limited time project, but the main idea is that the new budgetary law for 2025 to 2029 will take into account the costs of this project to ensure that it can be implemented over the long term. So I think I'm almost at the end of what I was going to say, but the idea is that Uruguay could stand as a regional level leader and encourage other countries that are interested in following down this same path. Thank you.
Okay. We are, as you can tell, a little behind on time, given our challenges. I appreciate everyone being so kind on this. We are going to do a lightning round with our panelists. It was going to be 1 minute. It's now going to be 30 seconds. The one point that you want this audience to come away with, I'm going to start with Major General O'Brien.
So I'll actually address this to the troop and police contributing countries who are struggling with maybe what they call their socio-cultural reasons that they can't integrate women into peacekeeping or into their forces. I want to save yourselves a lot of years of consideration and mental torture. Just do it. By learning lessons from the other TCCs of how and why integrating women into all roles works. It makes your force more effective, and therefore it will make your peacekeepers more effective. Just do it.
Yep. 100% agree. Captain Arhin online, your 30-second call to the audience here.
Thank you once again. The Elsie Initiative is the ultimate tool for effectively gender mainstreaming your military and police forces. I therefore urge you to apply to the Elsie Initiative, for it is the surest way to go. Thank you.
Amazing. Commissioner Fossen, you're up next.
Thank you. I would just like to address the TCCs and PCCs and be very strong, and we can never successfully implement our mandates unless the PCCs and the TCCs support us by deploying well-trained experts and with the required skill sets, because we really need experienced officers, at least from the police, who know how do they patrol. They have to have equipment. They need to be trained to also go out on patrols and to face the realities in the mission where we're working. Secondly, we need budgets so we can have a conducive environment for our peacekeepers so they are safe and they have a standard of living which is gender sensitive. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you. I see you snuck in a second point, but it's okay because it was important. Next, Councillor Beretta, your 30 seconds.
Okay, ahora que Uruguay.
Well, Uruguay is also a part of the leading committee of the Elsie Fund. We're pleased to be able to see the innovative projects in other TCCs and PCCs, and we're delighted to be able to share our experience with you.
Muchísimas gracias. The final point, Dr. Karim.
Research and policy perspective, the MOAP assessment is the gold standard for conducting an assessment of the individual and institutional level barriers that prevent women from deploying to UN peacekeeping operations. The countries that undertake the rigorous MOAP methodology, they send a signal to the world that they are serious about gender equality within the security forces and serious about addressing the challenges that women face when it comes to deployment to UN peacekeeping operations. Thank you.
Amazing. Amazing. Thank you. So I hope that everybody was taking notes and clear on what their literal marching orders are. I'm really delighted that we do have some interventions from the floor. I would ask you to keep your interventions as brief as possible, under 2 minutes if you possibly can. I believe that we have Denmark going to make an intervention, the DPR Ambassador Marie-Louise Koch-Wachter. The floor is yours.
Initiative Fund, UN Women and Canada for convening this third programming round. Thank you to Edith Bahous, to Yuski G. Lacroix, and to Lord Ahmed for their presentations, and not least to the panelists, which was extremely interesting to listen to, and to the awesome women in the field. Thank you so much for your work. It is really appreciated. Now, more women, and this was said several times, more women in peacekeeping means more effective peacekeeping. This is well documented. But sadly, despite many calls for changes over the years, and despite the real progress that USG Lacroix also accounted for, progress has been too slow. And we all have a responsibility here. So it's also, we also need to have a collective effort from the UN and from member states to accelerate progress towards achieving the targets that we have all adopted under the landmark Security Council Resolution 1325 and the subsequent resolutions. We need to continue to recognize and to analyze the structural barriers to women's participation in peacekeeping operations. And we need to establish mechanisms and strategies across the peace and conflict continuum that address them. And it was very interesting to listen to some of the studies that have actually been done under the Elsie Fund initiative. So that is really the good news here, that the Elsie Initiative Fund is doing really groundbreaking work here. You have delivered tangible results, contributed to a much needed progress on UN's commitment to advance gender parity in its peace operations. The success of the fund is not least due to the focus on cooperation between the UN, donor countries, and troop contributing countries. No single country acting alone, of course, can provide the needed solutions. So this was also the reason why Denmark joined the initiative at the Seoul Peacekeeping Ministerial in 2021. And today's high-level event really confirms to us that the decision to join was a very good decision. So far, we've contributed with $700,000 to the initiative under the auspices of UN Women. This includes $200,000 for this year. We remain dedicated to enable and support troop contributing countries that are doing an important job under very difficult circumstances. And as a strong supporter of the WPS agenda, Denmark is keen to contribute to continue its engagement with the Elsie Initiative Fund. We are therefore today also pledging another $200,000 to the fund in 2024. We will continue to explore the possibilities for further support and encourage other member states to consider supporting the Elsie Initiative Fund. I thank you.
Thank you so much. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ambassador. Next on my list is the Netherlands DPR Ambassador Mark Zellenrath, I believe. Oh, hello. Thank you.
There's the mic. Thank you so much for your moderation and this excellent panel. There's two things stood out that I just want to highlight. That was Major General O'Brien when you said it starts at home. And you're absolutely right. We actually in the Netherlands have only 11% of our uniformed personnel who are women. So it does start at home, especially considering the career path that you described. So we all need to step up, and certainly my country has to do it as well. And the other thing that really struck a chord was what you said, USG Lacroix, and that's the situation behind the numbers. Because you often speak about the numbers, the percentages. I just mentioned the percentage, but it's really about what is behind the numbers, namely a safe, supportive, inclusive work environment for everyone, regardless even of gender, your sexual orientation, but especially, of course, in a let's say a culture that has been masculine for centuries. So we need to pay particular attention to that. It needs to permeate in all the programs that we do. And I'm proud that my country now also has joined feminist foreign policy movement. And this is certainly part of it. The Elsie Fund, we've been with it since 2019. 3 million so far up until 2024, but that's part of more that we do. We have the through UN Women, the female military officers courses. We have a large women peace and security program of 40 million euros per year currently that really wants to look at basically what you said, USG, the situation also beyond the numbers. The last thing I just wanted to say is just do it. And I again, Major General, I completely agree. And I would even add, just do it, especially now, because we have 75 years of peacekeeping that we will be celebrating this year. We have 75 years of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights that we're celebrating this year. We have the Peacekeeping Ministerial in Ghana. We have several PrepCons that we're going to do, including one co-chaired by us. So this is the momentum. Let's do it now, and let's make this third programming round a resounding success. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next on my list is, I believe we have a representative from Germany. Maybe Germany? Online?
Yes, thank you very much. I hope you can hear me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to Canada and the Elsie Initiative Fund for hosting this high-level launch of the Elsie Initiative Fund third programming round. Germany commends the EIF, UN Women in Canada, for its commendable commitment for a full, equal, and meaningful participation of women in peacekeeping. You have set new standards on how to advance women's participation in peacekeeping. Germany remains a proud and steadfast supporter of the Elsie Initiative Fund. Amongst other important issues, we just heard why it is important for TCCs to undergo a barrier assessment. In the German Armed Forces, we have completed such a barrier assessment a few years ago. I can only underline the value of its outcome, which provided us with fact-based, comprehensive overview on areas where we have to do better for women's full, equal, and meaningful participation in UN peace operations. We highly recommend undertaking a MOWIP assessment to other TCCs. I invite all interested member states to reach out to us for information on our barrier study. We stand ready to assist and discuss anytime. We are now in the process to implement the identified measures, and it is of great value that the Elsie Initiative Fund does not only support TCCs with various studies, but remains a partner in implementing identified measures. Elsie also knows how to cooperate not only with TCCs, but also with peacekeeping missions such as UNIFIL, resulting in direct effects on the ground. That strategy is sustainable. As a strong partner of the Elsie Initiative Fund, Germany will continue its support and intends to encourage other member states to join the initiative. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Next on my list is the First Secretary of the Permanent Mission of the ROK. There we are. Excellent.
Thank you very much, and good morning to everyone. I am pleased to be here and speak on behalf of my ambassadors who unfortunately could not attend today, and I think I can make it in 2 minutes. So first of all, I would really like to begin by acknowledging Canada and UN Women, as well as other partners of the Elsie Initiative Fund, which have played a critical role in increasing the participation of women in peacekeeping, making our goals reality. As a strong advocate for the Elsie Initiative Fund, since its inception, the RK is proud to reaffirm its commitment to this important initiative. We recognize significant progress has been made, but we also know that there is still much work to be done. So in order to address the challenges and barriers that prevent women from fully participating in peacekeeping efforts, it is significant to provide gender-sensitive accommodation and targeted training and capacity building for uniformed women. So by creating a safe and welcoming environment for women peacekeepers, the Elsie Initiative Fund is doing its jobs in the right direction, I believe. As we launch the third programming round of the Elsie Initiative Fund, I am pleased to announce that my government is going to contribute $500,000 again to this fund for this year. I believe that by continuing to invest in initiatives like Elsie Initiative Fund, we can create a future where women are not only equally represented in peacekeeping, but where their contributions are fully recognized and valued. And I can also assure you that the RK will continue its unwavering support for this noble endeavor. And I also look forward to continuing to work together to ensure women's full, equal, and meaningful participation in peacekeeping that will surely contribute to sustaining peace around the globe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I believe we have one final intervention from Senegal. If I can ask you to keep it to 30 seconds, it would be amazing.
Okay, thank you. I'm Colonel Diouf. I'm the Milad of Senegal, so I will make it short. So first, I will express Senegal gratitude to the Elsie Fund and all the sponsors. We are we have benefited from the Elsie Fund, and we continue to benefit from it. As right now, there's a project going on that was financed by the Elsie Fund. And thanks to it, we were able to raise our level of female representation in the FPUs up to 15%. So we are on a good pace because the strategy for gender goal, I think, is 20%. So if we took it, we will meet the goal by 2028. And then for the IPOs as well, thanks to the Elsie Fund, we are at 33%. So that is over the goal that is set by the gender parity strategy by 2028. So we thank you so much for that. Now, one of our challenges is sustainability. Because if you look at our armed forces and the security sector, the level of women are low, 4%. If you have to maintain 20%, 30%, we have to increase our national female representation. And in that, the major barrier has been identified as lack of adequate infrastructure for the female. So we are looking forward to work closely with the fund to make peacekeeping more inclusive and also make more inclusive also our national defense and security sector. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We are slightly reshifting our schedule again. I'm going to have the closing remarks from Ambassador O'Neill, and then I know that some of you will likely have to leave, but we will have to conclude the session a video from OMA, which some of you might want to stay and listen to. But for now, Ambassador O'Neill, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Sarah. I'll be brief. Merci tout le monde. Thanks to everybody for contributing to this. Thanks for everyone who thanked us. Thanks to UN Women and DPO especially for your collaboration. I'll be brief. I have some good news to share. I'm going to start by saying what Canada always says and what we'll continue to say, which is that we agree and we're proud and we stand behind all of the fantastic reasons that everyone gave today about why we need women in peace operations. We also just want to continue to remind us all that it's a matter of justice and it's a matter of rights. And imagine if the question were reversed, and imagine if we asked men to make the case as to why it's acceptable and why we need to have such gender imbalanced forces. So people often ask us, how will you define success? Part of success will be when the question is reversed and the onus is on unrepresentative institutions to validate themselves. With that said, we have some great news to share, and our colleagues in UN Women have kindly allowed Canada to share it, which is a couple components. The biggest one is that the lifetime of the Elsie Initiative Fund is going to be extended, and it's going to be extended until the end of the year 2025. Let's give a round of applause for that. Thank you. That means a few things. It means three things at minimum. One is that we have more time to implement the good work, more time to evaluate, to implement evidence-based findings, more time to reinforce the UN's gender parity strategy, more time to keep up the good work. Secondly, it means there's more time to apply. Many of us talked today about the positive benefits of the fund and the initiative generally. Canada has also benefited from the Elsie Initiative Fund. We did the barrier assessment using the MOIP methodology on ourselves, and it's been very, very useful. I was in Bangladesh just a couple of days after we made the results of our report public and shared some of our initial findings. And as you mentioned, Major General, there's a lot of differences and a lot of samenesses, as you said, which was a really important thing. It's been useful to us. It's useful to everyone. There is time to apply. We didn't do it through the fund, I should say. We self-funded on that one. And thirdly, and really importantly, it means more time to contribute, more opportunities for colleagues in the room to find money in budget cycles. We're happy to say as Canada that we're contributing, increasing our contributions through the Elsie Initiative for Women in Peace Operations. And we're announcing today an additional $4.6 million to the Geneva Center for the Democratic Control of the Armed Forces, and another $1.6 million to Cornell University to, thank you. to maintain the valuable support to countries undergoing this assessment. And really want to say, we know economic times are tight. We know that contributing is not easy for anyone. And we also know that sometimes work on gender and women is often the first to be cut or the first to be deemed not an essential priority. And so I want to end with some of the remarks that our colleagues made at the very beginning to remind us that the goal of this is not more women for the sake of more women. It's the goal of more inclusive and more enduring peace. This is a shared UN goal. This is not about women. It's not about women just anywhere for the sake of having any women placed within any context. We have to focus on these receptive environments. And you mentioned, Undersecretary General, this issue of the environment, the receptive environment in which they work. A lot of that doesn't cost money. A lot of those are things that we need to deal with internally and as policy matters, and we have to keep up a focus on this. And finally, the goal is not simply to identify the barriers. It is indeed to remove them. Unfortunately, we have more time to do so, but we need to keep our feet on the gas pedal. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Excellent points. Always lovely to hear that there's more funding. But the substantive points are so spot on. Thank you so much, Ambassador O'Neill. To close us out today, we do have a video message from UN Military Advisor General Diop, who's going to have some words for us all as we go out into the world to enact this work.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, good morning. To begin, let me first congratulate all our friends and colleagues who have organized this very significant event. Significant because addressing gender inequality in UN peace operations is a complex undertaking. Although women make up half of the world's population, the international community continues to struggle to reach gender parity goals. Gender equality is a fundamental human right and essential for building inclusive and sustainable peace. We know that women's participation brings diverse perspectives to peacekeeping operations. Women's participation also enables a comprehensive understanding of conflict and its impact on different communities and can enable a more effective mandate implementation. Women's participation in peacekeeping can also serve as a powerful beacon for other women and girls, demonstrating that they can break down barriers in traditionally male-dominated fields. Consequently, we in the United Nations are committed to promoting gender equality and increasing women's participation in peacekeeping operations. Since the adoption of the landmark UN Security Council Resolution 1325 in 2000, there has been a growing recognition of the importance of women's participation in peace and security. The UN is earnestly committed to increasing women's participation in peacekeeping operations through a targeted approach in its military components. Progress has been made in increasing the participation of women in UN peacekeeping missions, but significant gaps still exist. As of 2022, women made up approximately 6% of military personnel in contingents in field missions. While this represents an increase from the early 2000s, when women's participation was less than 2%, it is still far from the UN's target of 15% for military contingents by 2025. There are also significant gaps in women's participation in leadership positions. There are several factors that contribute to these gaps, including structural barriers such as gender stereotypes and discrimination, as well as practical challenges such as the lack of childcare and gender-specific equipment. To bridge these gaps, it is essential to address the underlying factors and take concrete measures such as targeted recruitment and training, provision of gender-sensitive equipment and facilities, and the retention of and promotion of women into leadership positions. Additionally, it is crucial to ensure that women's participation is not limited to traditional gender roles, such as healthcare or administration, but is also extended to combat and operational roles. The Elsie Initiative Fund for Uniformed Women in Peace Operations actively supports troop and police contributing countries, PCCs, and UN organizations by providing financial and technical support to identify and overcome barriers to women's participation in peacekeeping operations. The fund is supporting a number of innovative projects, including the construction of a childcare facility to enable women to attend career training and training on a gender perspective provided to senior military leadership, women and men. You will hear more about the innovative project the fund is supporting from fund recipients later this morning. By providing targeted support and resources to TPCCs and UN organizations, the Elsie Initiative Fund is supporting the UN to accelerate progress toward achieving the UN's gender targets. We at the United Nations greatly value and appreciate your partnership, efforts, and support. We look forward to enhancing and extending this important partnership and to create receptive UN mission environments for all peacekeepers, including physical, social, and cultural aspect. I thank you very much.
Excellent. It's a wonderful way to close the discussion today. I want to just point out the point he started with, which is that this work that we're discussing is a beacon to all of us, and as raised by so many of us today, to achieve our joint goals of the UN of inclusive and sustainable peace. I'd like to remind you before you leave that there are some dates. There will be some dates on the screen on the technical briefing and webinars. And I would like to thank you all for this rich discussion. I would like to thank you all for not forcing me to use my gavel. And in the combined words of General O'Brien and the Netherlands, just do it now. Thank you. The session is closed.